this countdown, we have the photographic evidence. A couple of years ago, a man named Edward came forward claiming that he was a time traveler from the year 5000. He even came with evidence. Now, he used a fake name and had his identity hidden so people weren't gonna come after him. So according to Edward, he claims he was part of a top secret experiment that took place in 2004. During the test, he was successfully transported in time. He was taken to LA 5,000 years in the future, and it's not looking too good. He said, and I quote, "I was standing on a huge wooden platform, and after I realized it was the same city, Los Angeles, but underwater." This man's claims were backed up with evidence. He took a photo of LA underwater. I don't even know what to think. Either he's good at Photoshop or he's actually a time traveler. I just thought that the water would be way more polluted than that. Like, that's far too clear, you know? It's a little sketchy. In our 9th spot, we have Vladimir Putin. Turns out that the president of Russia is a time traveler. Take a look at these photos. First, we got a Russian soldier from 1920, and he looks identical to Putin. Then we have another Russian soldier from 1941, and he also looks like a young Putin, who is pictured on the far right. Too eerie. Either he's immortal, or he's a time traveler. Moving on at number 8, we have the TikTok time traveler. Now, I talked about this case briefly before, and I'm throwing it on today's list because it's the most recent case of time travel. Basically, a guy named Javier claims that he is a time traveler who is now stuck in the year 2027. The scariest part is that the entire human race is wiped out by then. On his TikTok page, he posts videos of him wandering the streets of Spain alone. He has gone to stadiums, airports, police stations, hospitals, restaurants, and malls. No one is there except himself, which is crazy because normally those places would be packed with people, but they aren't. So here's the thing. Either he's a time traveler and was sent to the future to warn us, or he's somehow faking it. But a number of people have analyzed his videos. Some people believe he edits everyone out of the video. Sure, it's possible to edit objects and people out of videos, but it's harder to do with multiple people in the shot, in which there would be, and it's harder if the people are moving around, which they would be. Another theory is that these videos were pre-filmed, that they were filmed during the pandemic when they were under lockdown and had a curfew. But in order to prove that that's not the case, he gets his followers to tell him where he should go next. He then will go to that specific place and prove no one is there. The freakiest part is he has gone to hospitals. If this was filmed during the pandemic, the hospitals would be filled with people. But when he walks around, no one, and I mean no one, is there. Maybe this is real and we should take him seriously. Who knows, but believe what you want to believe. In our 7th spot, we have the 800-year-old cell phone. In 2016, a group of researchers unearthed an ancient-looking cell phone in Austria. The phone is covered in cuneiform writing, which dates back to thousands of years ago, making this object thousands of years old. But obviously, we didn't have phones back then, when this clearly looks like it was modeled after a Nokia phone. Alien hunters believe that it comes from an advanced civilization that has come to Earth. Others believe that this object is proof of time travel. What's even more weird is that I can't seem to find much about this phone online, so it looks like no one has debunked it yet. Maybe it's real then, who knows? In our 6th spot, we have the man named Noah. Back in 2018, a man came forward claiming that he was a time traveler from the year 2030. He called himself Noah. Obviously, it's not his real name, and he sat down for a television interview to share with the world what life is like in 2030. But of course, his face and voice were distorted to protect his identity. He said that he can't let anyone know who he really is. Basically, he said that he will be killed for speaking the truth about time travel. He goes on to prove that he's a real time traveler by getting an x-ray of his hand. Upon doing so, it's revealed that there's a weird device implemented in his wrist. That's what Noah says is what helps him when he time travels. Not only that, but he underwent a lie detector test and he passed it, showing that his claims were real. Now, what did he say is in store for the future? Well, since this occurred in 2018, he said that in 2019 it will be filled with more UFO sightings, which, yes, that was true. He also claims that in 2028, that's when aliens will come down to Earth, and that's also the year that the government will reveal that time travel is real. That's pretty intense if you ask me. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the Antikythera mechanism. In 1900s, a team of divers exploring the Greek island of Antikythera made a fascinating discovery. They came across an ancient shipwreck. The ship was filled with statues, jewelry, coins, pottery, you name it. They were all like, booyah, jackpot. As they continued searching the ship though, they came across this weird object. It was a blob of corroded bronze and wood. 2 years later, an archaeologist decided to examine this and discovered it was an astronomical clock. But the items came from ancient Greece and clocks hadn't been invented then. This item was in similar size to a mantle clock, and the bits of wood fragments on it suggest that it was probably in a wooden case. They also believe the case would have had like a circular face or rotating hands. There was also a knob on the side, and the mechanism could rotate forwards and backwards. Needless to say, it was a fairly complex object for that time period, so some believe that it was left by a time traveler. If not, then what could this device be, and how come it was so advanced for its time? In our fourth spot, we have the year 3207.
Quote was time machine. They took me to a room filled by many kinds of displays, gadgets, wires that I had never ever seen. The head of project came to me and told all about that mystical project.
A couple of years ago, an unidentified Greek man came forward saying that he traveled in time to the year 3207. He claims that he was shot forward in time and spent 2 days in the year 3207 as part of a top secret military program. He was paid $100,000 to do so.
That after some minutes they would send me to the year 3207. As I understood, I was kinda laboratory mouse for them, But the money and career that I was suggested were worthy for it.
He claims that in the future, the buildings were massive, triple the size that they are today. He also says that there were flying cars and that there was strange colored grass. It wasn't green, but a deep purple. And lastly, he said that aliens, humans, big animals, and robots were all walking together down the street. That's pretty interesting, not gonna lie. Don't know if I believe that guy, but some people do. I mean, he also showed photographic evidence, but claims that the photos got a bit distorted while going through the whole time travel process. To me, they kinda just look like bad Photoshop, but you decide. In our third spot, we have Paul Dynick. Now, if you haven't heard about this case before, then you're in for a shock. In 1921, a man named Paul Dynick, a Swiss-Australian teacher, slipped into a coma for about a year. For that year, he claimed that he went to the year 3096, where he switched consciousness with a man named Andrew Northman. One minute he was in a coma, next he's inside Andrew's body speaking a foreign language. For that year, he was living as Andrew. Paul was so scared to tell anyone of this experience, so he just wrote it in his diary and kept it a secret. However, just before he passed away, he gave his diary to one of his students to translate, and that's when it was revealed that he had somehow time traveled to the future. It's pretty insane. Could he be telling the truth, or was it all just a coma dream? In our second spot, we have the time-traveling murderer. Okay, this next story is going to leave you baffled. Back in 2014, a woman was found dead in London. It was clearly a murder. Thankfully, her attacker's DNA was found all over her body. Upon doing a forensics test, they got a match. But here's the thing, the supposed attacker was found dead a full 3 weeks before her victim. So how is it possible for her to kill someone when she had already died? So people think that the killer was a time traveler, and that days before her own death, she went a couple weeks into the future to kill this woman. I don't even know. It's just an insane case, if you ask me. And in our number 1 spot today, we had the London Hammer. Back in 1936 Texas, a man named Max Hahn and his wife were out for a walk when they stumbled upon this odd rock with a tool sticking directly out of it. This is what is now called the London Hammer, or the London Artifact. It was discovered to be part of a hammer that was trapped inside a rock that dates back to being over 400 million years old. Clearly back then they did not have hammers, so how the heck did a modern day human-made tool date back to a time where humans weren't even around? Theory goes that it was dropped by a time traveler, but I want to know who would go that far back in time. But let me know in the comments below, would you rather travel to the past or the future? Starting off this countdown, we have the Adidas shoes. Now, this is a famous case of supposed time travel. A couple of years ago, an ancient mummy was unearthed in Mongolia. Nothing was too off about the mummy, besides the fact that she wore shoes that looked like Adidas trainers. The shoes had red and black stripes on it. I personally don't see the resemblance with the shoes, but others are convinced that this body belongs to a time traveler. Upon analyzing the body further, they found that it belonged to a woman who died from a blow to the head. It's theorized that this woman may have indeed have been a time traveler and was killed after her identity was leaked. What else could explain the fact that this woman was found wearing Adidas? Just a little tip, if you're going time traveling, don't wear Nike or Adidas. Moving on to number 9, we have The Fight. A video of Mike Tyson's fight from 1995 went viral online for containing supposed proof of a time traveler. In the background of the video, you can see a man who appears to be recording or taking photos of the fight on an iPhone or another modern camera phone. The fight was in 1995 and camera phones were not sold until the 2000s. As a result, many people are convinced that the man in the audience is a time traveler, who I guess is a fan of Mike Tyson. What also tripped people out is the fact that the main cameras used in the 90s were the ones with the lenses in the middle. This camera is clearly lacking that. However, others believe that the man is not a time traveler and in fact was just taking a photo on a camera known as the Casio QV10A. Even though it's been potentially debunked, there are people out there that don't believe it for a second. In our 8th spot, we have the Mohawk Man. It's like, where's Waldo with these photos? Except you're looking for the person that doesn't belong. So this next image is apparently from 1905 and shows workers and a banana boat delivering goods. However, near the boat there appears to be someone standing there in a white t-shirt rocking a Mohawk style haircut, which is a very unusual haircut for that time period. The men in the photo are wearing suits and top hats and have fancy mustaches and look well dressed, whereas he's there in a plain t-shirt. Due to the fact that he looks out of place, people have pegged him as a time traveler. He kind of reminds me of Robert De Niro from Taxi Driver though. In our 7th spot, we have the Hipster, another very popular photo that has been circulating online. So the photo contains a crowd of people in the 1940s at the reopening ceremony for the South Fork Bridge in British Columbia. Well, in this photo, everyone seems to be dressed up besides the man on the right hand side of the photo. Everyone else is in suits and top hats, and this tall man seems to be very out of place dressed like a hipster, hence why he was given that name. He can be seen sporting funky sunglasses, a graphic t-shirt, and of course is carrying a camera. Now, some believe that he is indeed a time traveler, whereas others have tried to debunk it. They claim that all the items he is seen wearing were available back in 1941 when the photo was taken. Either way, he looks pretty out of place. In our 6th spot, we have Greta Thunberg. I'm sure all of you have heard about Greta Thunberg, the young Swedish activist who is spreading the word about climate change. Well, there's a theory out there that Greta is actually a time traveler. This theory came to life after a photo of 3 children was uploaded to the internet. These children appeared to be at a gold mine on Dominion Creek in the Yukon. However, the one girl looks identical to Greta and is even wearing the same braided hairstyle. As a result, people believe that Greta is a time traveler sent from the future to save humanity before we completely destroy it. And then apparently she traveled back to 1898 to the Yukon before coming to the present moment. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the fence legend. So this one is more of a legend, but either way it makes for a good time traveling story. So legend goes that there was a 30-year-old man named Rudolph Fentz who was hit and injured by a New York taxi in the 1950s. His pockets contained a copper token for beer, a bill for the care of a horse, and a letter from 1876 among other unusual items. Turns out that this man was a person who disappeared in 1876 at the age of 29. Like I mentioned before, this is apparently a legend that originated from a 1951 short story book. But others believe that this is actually a cover-up, and that Rudolph Fentz was a real man who was a time traveler. Making our way down the list at number 4, we have the beach time traveler. What's something you would do if you could time travel? Maybe stop a tragedy from happening, save someone's life, or just chill at the beach getting some rays. Because That last one is exactly what this time traveler did. A photo from September 1943 apparently shows British factory workers enjoying their break on the beach during the midst of wartime. Everyone is seen wearing bathing suits that fit the era. But right in the middle of the photo is a man in a brown suit, who honestly looks like Mr. Bean. This dude is also checking something that looks like a phone. Some even say that he's checking his time travel device. People were really weirded out about this man because he sticks out like a sore thumb. As a result, he has been deemed a time traveler. Coming in our third spot, we have the film extra. In this next situation, a woman time traveled to be an extra in a Charlie Chaplin film. Or so it appears that way. In the 1928 film, a woman who appears to be taking a phone call can be seen crossing the screen. The video was in the behind the scenes footage from Chaplin's film, The Circus. The woman is in a long black coat and is holding something to her ear, which she is speaking into. Of course, in 1928 there were no cell phones, so how is this possible? 2 words: time travel. However, others believe that she is simply holding a hearing device to her ear, or that she's holding up her hand to shield her eyes from the sun. But that still doesn't explain why she appears to be talking to herself and holding the black rectangular object like a cell phone. Let me know in the comments below what you think about this one. In our second spot, we have the Canadian man. Now, this photo is pretty odd. The photo is over 100 years old and shows a bunch of dressed up Canadians chilling on a hill. Another Canadian time traveler. At first glance, everything appears to be normal, until you take a closer look. On the left side of the photo, there's a man on the hill that seems out of place. I mean, the men are dressed up in top hats and suits, and he's just chilling there in a t-shirt and shorts. In fact, the 2 men beside him are giving him a look like, who's this guy? As a result, people have referred to him as the surfing time traveler. Like seriously, he seems so out of place. But also, why would you choose that as your time traveling outfit? Like I'd pick something cool, like a leather jacket, you know, look all cool and edgy. And in our number 1 spot, we have the cell phone. Another time traveler caught using a cell phone. So if you're gonna go back in time, don't bring your phone. A film from 1938 shows a woman talking on a device that looks just like a cell phone. Again, how is that possible when the first mobile phone wasn't available to buy until around the 80s? After this video made headlines, a YouTube user came forward claiming that the lady in the video was her great-grandmother. She apparently asked her grandmother, whose name is Gertrude Smith, about the video, and she said that she really was using a cell phone. Apparently, the phones were a prototype developed by a communications factory in Massachusetts. Gertrude and 5 other women were given the phones to test out for a week. But it's still hard to believe that this company was way ahead of the times. When mobile phones were ready, they were big, not the small ones that fit comfortably in your hand as seen in the video. So it really does make us wonder, what's real and what's not? Honestly, it seems hard to believe, and Gertrude Smith seems like a made-up name. And it was never even confirmed if what this user said was true. So it may just be that time travel is real and Gertrude was not too sly and got caught in action.
Coming in at number 10 now, we have Håkan Nordqvist. In 2006, this Swedish man claimed he had been to the year 2046. How did he get there? Through his kitchen sink. He was trying to fix a problem under his sink, but when he went into the cabinet, he noticed that it just didn't end. It kept on going and going and going. Eventually, he reached the end of the tunnel, and there he was in the year 2042, and he met his older self. This might be easy to dismiss, but for one thing, he brought his phone with him and he filmed it. What you're seeing now is the footage of him meeting his older self in the year 2042. They even show each other their identical tattoos. I don't know about this one, maybe we'll have to wait until 2042 to see if he really was telling the truth. Alright, at number 9 now we have the Chaplin Time Traveler. In 2010, a clip was uploaded to YouTube from the Extras DVD of Charlie Chaplin's film The Circus. It shows people attending the premiere of the movie, and then there is this woman. Now people claim she is talking into a phone. Problem is, This was 1928, about 45 years before the first cell phone was ever even conceived of. Believers say that there would be no reason to hold something to your face in 1928 and talk into it, so what was she doing? Was it a cell phone? Is she a time traveler? Or is there some simple explanation for it? At number 8 now we have the Hamburg bombing. In 1932, two German news reporters visited the Hamburg shipyards to work on a story. J. Bernard Hutton and Joachim Brandt finished their interviews, and as they left, they heard aircraft above them. The sky was filled with warplanes. They heard the city's anti-aircraft guns firing as bombs exploded around them. The shipyard was being bombed. Huge fires started. Warehouses collapsed. The two men ran to see if they could go and help someone, but were told by a security guard to just leave. As they drove away, the sky suddenly started to clear. The streets were busy again with people. The buildings were totally intact. They looked back and everything was fine. They told their editors this, who dismissed it completely, so the men just kind of forgot about it. 11 years later, in 1943, at the height of World War II, the Hamburg shipyards were bombed by Britain. Bernard Hutton saw the newspaper pictures and felt a shiver along his spine. The scenes of devastation were exactly what he had seen in person 11 years before. At number 7 now, we have the time-travelling hipster. This is a picture from 1941 of the reopening of a bridge in British Columbia, Canada. People's eyes were immediately drawn to this man. His clothes don't seem to fit in. He looks more like a modern-day hipster than someone from 1941. People said his camera was just too compact for that era. For them, this was a sure sign of a time traveler wearing and using things that just didn't exist back then. The photo has been deemed as authentic. It's not a fake. Critics of this theory though say that the clothes and the camera were available at that time, though not widely common. Alright, at number 6 now we have Andrew Carlson. In 2003, this man was arrested for playing the stock market too well. Over a 2-week period, he went from having $800 to $350 million. He was arrested on the allegation that he had insider information. Under questioning, he confessed he was actually from the year 2256. That's how he knew which stocks were going to perform best. He promised to tell them the whereabouts of Osama bin Laden or the cure to AIDS if they let him go. He supposedly predicted the exact date of the Iraq war starting as proof. The police essentially dismissed him as crazy and found no evidence that he had committed fraud, so they let him go. As the world media swarmed to interview him, he was gone and has never been heard of since. Coming in at number 5 now, we have Sir Victor Goddard. He was a famous British air marshal, most famous for his squad picture that contained the supposed ghost of a former member. He also claimed to have travelled in time. In 1935, he was ordered to fly from Scotland to England when he passed over the abandoned Drem airfield. At that time, it was out of use. Plants had grown everywhere. There were even cows grazing on the runway. Suddenly, he ran into a strange storm. The clouds were yellow and Goddard became disorientated. He was just lost in the clouds and falling. Then the yellow clouds broke and he could see the airfield again. The storm vanished. Everything was clear. The airfield had changed. There were now mechanics there working on brand new planes. 3 of them he recognized, but the 4th was a monoplane that didn't even exist in 1935. The planes were all yellow and the mechanics were wearing blue overalls. He had never seen anything like it. Eventually though, after many years, the planes and the new uniforms did come to pass. Drem Airfield even came back into use, just like Goddard said. Was this all a lucky guess or a genuine time slip? At number 4 now we have John Titor. In 2000, a person calling himself John Titor announced on an online forum that he was an American soldier from the year 2036. Now he said the government sent him back to 1976 to get an IBM computer which they needed to debug computers in the future. He stopped off in 2000 for personal reasons and decided to let people in on the secrets of the future. He got certain things right, North Korea developing missiles, IBM computers having secret functions. He also left detailed schematics and explanations of his actual time machine. But he did get some things wrong. He said there would be another American Civil War in 2008 and World War III would have happened by 2015. But he also said that timelines could be changed. Does that explain it? Either way, the mysterious John Titor disappeared altogether from the internet in 2003. Okay, at number 3 now we have the Mike Tyson fight. In 1995, Mike Tyson boxed Peter McNeely in Nevada. In 2015, 2015, YouTube started buzzing with people saying that in the background of one of the clips of this fight there was a time traveler. They said this woman here was carrying what is clearly a smartphone and taking pictures, years before that was even possible. They said that no phone like that existed in 1995 and that it even flashed red like a smartphone. Other people countered by showing examples of cameras that did exist back then that kind of look similar. What do you guys think though? Is it too close to call, or is it proof of a time traveling boxing fan going back to watch their favourite match? Okay, at number 2 now we have the astronaut. The Catedral Nueva in Spain started being built in 1513. It's a grand old cathedral with a lot of nice stonework you'd expect from the Middle Ages, except for one bit of it. There, along one of the entrances, is a carving of an astronaut. What is an astronaut doing on a 16th century church? Well, this is where the explanations divide. The church itself and many other people there say that the astronaut was added as part of a 1992 restoration project. That makes sense, but others say that doesn't add up. They say that the astronaut was carved a lot earlier than that, and that the restoration work was actually to just repair the damaged astronaut. They say it was proof of a time traveling astronaut who left a little mark on the era he visited. And finally now, at number 1 we have Gertrude Jones. This is her in 1938 leaving the factory where she worked. Some people on YouTube were freaking out saying that she was talking into a phone decades before that was even possible. They said even the way she holds it is reminiscent of someone holding a smartphone with your thumb over the screen. However, in 2013 a woman came forward in the comment section of the video to say that she was the great granddaughter of Gertrude, who was actually part of a science experiment to test an early wireless phone. Some people say that's it, case closed, no more explanation is needed, but others say there are no records of these experiments that happened about 40 years before the first cell phone prototypes were even being made. Was Gertrude a time traveler? Was she also the person who commented on the YouTube video in an attempt to cover her tracks? What do you guys think of this one?